Hey guys, Alyssa Lascala here from Fit with Liz. I actually was just doing my Facebook Live on my Fit with Liz Facebook page on intermittent fasting, and it actually froze for a little bit. So I figured, you know what, if I'm gonna go and redo this and make sure that I hit everything, I'll just do it on my my personal page as well, so the rest of you guys can see it. But when it comes to intermittent fasting, I've had so many people ask me questions about it lately. I've seen a couple people post about it. My mentor Rachel Jackson was asking people's opinions about it. She got a lot of buzz on that, and so you could really see the differences in how some people approached it, whether they felt it worked for them or not. And so I wanted to address it, especially with females, because it's so common for females to ask me, should I be fasting? So I kind of wanted to go into it letting you guys know exactly how I felt about intermittent fasting when I first heard about it. So I was very ignorant, I'll be absolutely honest, because anything with the word fast in it, because I love my food, I was like, unless it's breakfast, like, I am not doing it. I was not even going to touch on it. I was like, I love my food. I get hangry. I want to eat. And so it wasn't something that I really was going to entertain. So that was, several years ago. But as most of you guys know, 6 years ago, I got diagnosed with my Lyme disease. A couple years later, the adrenal fatigue. And so you start to become a little bit more open to learning about other techniques that are out there. So I did my due diligence, and I encourage you guys to do that. Instead of just, hearing about what the next fad is or the next approach is, if you start to, either do your own research or find somebody like, me, who just loves doing the research and kind of, sums it up and can regurgitate it for you there, at least you're educated on it and you can make an educated decision. Because the last thing we want is to be ignorant, but if you're able to look at the research and say, yeah, I really agree with that, the science backs it up, or no, I don't feel like that's for me, whatever, conclusion you come to, at least you know that it came from, true resources. So that was my first standpoint on it. I was like, I'm not fasting. Like, there's no way that I'm going to do that. But the more that I looked into it, because I also want to know what different options are out there for my clients, the more that I understood the science behind it. And so I'll tell you guys, it is not for everybody. And I'm gonna go over that here, is what qualities might make you a better proponent for someone that might try intermittent fasting. It doesn't mean that you have to do it all the time. Maybe it's something that you wanna implement. A lot of people wanna do it as far as, a way to break through a weight loss plateau. So if you guys think of questions throughout this live, feel free to post them. I'll scroll through at the end and make sure that I answer anything that hasn't been said. But first of all, I'll just let you guys know that, like, intermittent fasting has definitely become more popular, whether it's because of more of the evidence is coming about, or just because people kind of want to try another way to lose weight. I don't exactly know, but guys, fasting has been around forever. The 1940s, and all the different biblical texts and different religious texts, they talk about different ways of fasting. So it's been around. This isn't anything new, but the evidence is supporting that it has a lot of benefits to it. But you have to remember, this is just one type of diet, one type of, of practice of eating. So a lot of times people do the 5 to 6 meals a day. You're eating every, 3.5 to 4 hours. That happens to be what works best for me most of the time, but everyone goes through seasons. So we'll go over this. And if you guys have any questions, like I said, post them below. So I'll refer to this as IF throughout the time, so I don't trip over my words a million times. Oh, Tony, you want intermittent cheeseburgers. Yes, so we'll talk about the quality of food that you have to have during intermittent fasting. That's a good point. So first of all, it doesn't mean that you should eat whatever you want, okay? So when it comes to the intermittent fasting, a lot of times people do 12 to 16 hours of fasting, or maybe 16 to 20 hours if you're a little bit more extreme of fasting. And then, the other time period of the day is when you consume your meals. Now, what is the point behind this? The fact is that your body actually takes about 6 to 8 hours to deplete through the glycogen stores. And what that means is that, of course, when we eat, our body stores things as sugar. And when it finally fills up all the glycogen stores, it starts to store it as fat. Duh. So we want to be able to get through all the glycogen that we have stored so that we can start burning that fat. That's why the weight loss part is so optimal to people here, okay? So you're trying to think of that, 10-hour period that you are eating during the day, or 6 to 8 hours if you're doing this a little bit more extreme, to be able to consume all your foods. But you want to make sure that there's still healthy foods, guys. Doing the intermittent fasting isn't going to do a damn thing for you if you don't have healthy eating behaviors. So you have to make sure that you have the lean proteins. You have to make sure that you have the healthy fats, healthy carbohydrate sources. Carbs and fat, grams may vary depending on, your body genetics, your metabolic profile, like I've talked about before. But you have to make sure that you're not, as Tony said, eating, intermittent cheeseburgers in between. That's not the point of this, okay? So we want to make sure that we have the other foods on point. So when we do get to start burning that fat, it is still healthy sources here, okay? So it doesn't mean binge eating. I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. There are some people that, like, psychologically, intermittent fasting is not going to be for you. Anyone that has experienced an eating disorder in the past, someone that has been, had an issue with binge eating, somebody that has had an issue with, bulimia, all of a sudden binging and purging. I went through my own eating disorder years back when I was in middle school, and so I know that I had a psychological tendency to have issues with food. And I'll be open and honest about it because I know there are so many females that whether you had it labeled that you had an eating disorder or not, a lot of us just had disordered eating patterns. So you need to be aware of that when you go and you try and start and implement a new practice like this. It's so important, guys. So there are certain qualities that do make you a better proponent than others, and I'll touch a little bit more on those in a minute. But when it comes to the idea behind this, like I said, you want to be able to optimally burn fat as you go through those glycogen stores, and then taking the energy that you would normally put towards digesting food and putting it towards the other processes in your body can be so healing, guys. And that's what I found a lot more prevalently as I start studying more like autoimmune disorders, when I'm studying Lyme disease, anything, neurodegenerative diseases when it comes to Alzheimer's and Huntington's. There's been so many different researches out there, different studies out there showing that when the body's not constantly focusing on digesting, it's able to do other things such as the cellular repair, cellular rebuilding, any types of things like that. Those take a lot of energy too. And if your body's always constantly trying to break down food, it's getting tired and it doesn't have the energy it needs to do those other things. So there really are neurological benefits to it. And I know a lot of people, I've even seen comments on posts in the past couple of days saying that they think clearer. And it's very possible because your body's not sending all the blood towards your gut trying to be able to digest what you just ate. So that's another proponent there. A lot of different hormone balancing, and this definitely affects females. So this is something I'll touch on in a minute as well. When it comes to the HGH levels, human growth hormone, a lot of athletes try and implement intermittent fasting because it's going to naturally increase HGH, increase muscular endurance and muscle growth and repair, but more importantly, ghrelin and leptin levels. So those are your appetite stimulating and appetite suppressing hormones. So if you get them imbalanced, say that I have a couple clients actually that are overweight and need to lose weight, but they have an issue that I have never had where they are just not hungry. And so to be able to get those hormones to balance out correctly, to stimulate hunger, to be able to suppress it when needed, going through fasting actually helps your body to be able to naturally balance out those levels. People that are seeming to get insulin resistant may have been taking in way too many carbs, way too many sugars. This can help you actually balance that out. Of course, you want to have it monitored. You should have some type of professional or someone that's knowledgeable in this area doing it with you, helping you, supporting you, guiding you. Don't just Google this and try and do it on your own. We don't need you passing out, but it is something that could help you in those areas. It could make you a good proponent for it. And then, when it comes down to the multiple fasting schedules, I'll tell you that the best thing, I know someone asked about fasting with water. I'll touch on that in a second. But the best thing that seems to work for most people, because when you think of trying to go 16 hours without eating, you can say I'm like, holy crap, I could never go that long. But think about it this way, guys. Think about if 8 o'clock at night was the last time that you ate, and then you didn't eat the next day until lunch. So you just basically skipped breakfast and you didn't eat until lunch. You just got your 16 hours there. So it's not as difficult as it may initially seem. When I first heard of it, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to do that. I love food. But if you're doing this properly and, you make it so that, you're eating before you go to bed, you're not constantly having those hunger pains before you go to sleep, because then you're going to have interrupted sleep and that's just going to throw your levels off even more. You're going to get to the point that you could actually, make it till you last till lunch. I know Christina just said, oh, I would pass out. There are some people that, maybe they are hyperglycemic, hypoglycemic, diabetics, different people that, their blood sugar just wouldn't last that long. Maybe this wouldn't work for you, and that's totally okay. These are just some of the different options out there. But I want to touch on the fact before I forget that somebody said, what about water? So when you're fasting, does that mean that you can drink water? Can you have tea? Can you have coffee? The answer is yes, as long as we're not having any like carbohydrates or sugar in there. So when you have black coffee, you have green tea. I love doing BCAAs. I will actually do a video on that closer to the weekend. Branched chain amino acids. There's so many benefits to that I highly suggest sipping on those until you get out of that fasted state, and then you're going to eat. Okay, so I'll touch on that later, but that's a big point. Thank you for pointing that out, Howard. So when it comes to the type of people that are going to be able to do this, it's not going to be everybody. But if you are somebody that feels like that they have generally a very little stressed situation or environment, for lack of better words, this could be possible for you. But if this is going to cause more stress on you guys, if this is going to be something where you feel like it's just going to be, you're constantly going to be thinking about eating, you're constantly going to be worried about, when you're going to be able to just have that next meal, maybe it's not for you. Maybe it's not something that you want to try right now. If you're increasing your stress level, you're going to drain out your adrenals. You are going to affect your cortisol levels. Women, I'm especially talking to you because we're very sensitive to this. Our hormones are a lot different than men, and you probably shouldn't fast as long as them. You want to try and introduce this at a time period where it's not going to be as stressful to you, okay? So think about it. If you're already that stressed, don't do this. Don't do this right now. Wait until things calm down a little bit, and then let's try it. But it's going to be difficult the first couple of days. But, try and implement it maybe, on a Friday, go into a Saturday, go into a Sunday, and then maybe by Monday, you'll start to feel a difference. My holistic MD said that was the first way that he started to implement his fasting, and it was the best way for him, or do it over a vacation, or maybe one that you're not around a lot of people, because this might not be the most pleasant experience for them, depending on who you are. But those are your different options, guys. And if you ever want to talk about that, let me know. Feel free to message me. But what I do want to say specifically for females is there's such a thing called a crescendo fasting. And so they actually suggest that this could be almost like your transition into trying to do intermittent fasting. So crescendo fasting would be doing non-consecutive days of these fasting periods. So say like a Tuesday, a Thursday, and a Saturday, you're going to go and do this fasting period of, 14 to 16 hours, ladies especially. I wouldn't really do any longer than that, just because your hormonal balances are a lot more sensitive than males. But you'll go and you'll do it for those days so that you're still getting the benefits of the optimal fat burning on those days, but you kind of have your, your Monday, your Wednesday, your Friday, your Sunday to be able to balance that out. If we end up going into too much of a hormonal shock here, ladies, it can really affect your hormones. They actually did a study. It wasn't with humans, so it may not be directly proportional, but they looked at female mice compared to male mice doing this intermittent fasting for 2 weeks, and how it affected the levels of their hormones and their ovulation cycles. It was very negative to do it consistently for a long period of time. And of course, we're not rats. Yes, I know that. But when you're looking at how it affects an animal versus then how it's going to affect a human, and be able to try to start looking at the correlation, the fact that it affected their ovulation cycles is huge. So just really think about that. There is a right and wrong way to do it. I'm going to try and go through the questions here as far as making sure that everything is touched on. I think I got everyone here. So if you have any additional questions below, please post them below. Let me know. I'll keep popping in and out, trying to make sure I cover it for you guys. If you guys want some examples of good articles that I found, even going to pubmed.gov and finding ones that say it is or isn't good for females, especially if you're breastfeeding or you're thinking about trying to become pregnant, anything like that. No, this is not for you. No, thank you. Okay. So if you have any questions, like I said, post them below. Hope you guys found this helpful. And if you feel like this is something you want to venture, feel free to reach out and I can help guide you through it. All right. Talk to you guys soon.